What is going on, everybody? I have officially played my first 100% perfect game that ends in a checkmate. I have played nearly 10,000 games online, if not more. I think I got several thousand on this account, but I've had more accounts than this. First one ever. Never never have done that before. Fucking amazing. 4 book moves, 9 perfect moves after the book moves when I got out, and I was the last one to make a book move. He broke book. Game started off e4. He matched e5, both book. I developed knight f3, and I was hoping to play like a Scotch Gambit game, but he played this weird fucking move f5. So I decided to take the e5 pawn instead of the f5 pawn, because if I took the f5 pawn, I figured he could march up his e pawn and kick out my knight. Wasn't feeling that. He developed his knight to f6, attacking my e4 pawn a second time. So I figured even if I defended it, it wasn't good enough, so might as well look for something else. And I developed my bishop to c4 because now I have 2 attackers on the f7 pawn, and he really can't push the d4 pawn attacking the bishop because I would just be able to capture my pawn, and he couldn't grab it with his knight because of the whole queen h5. If he marches up the pawn, then my knight can take the g6 pawn, and if he recaptures, I grab the rook. If he doesn't recapture and does something else, then I have the whole shenaz fancy-pantsy discover check on his king. So I chose to do the bishop, long story short. He moved out his queen to e7, attacking my knight, thinking if I moved it, that's just a third attacker on the e4 pawn. But I decided to back it up with d4 push, and he captured my e pawn with his f pawn. So I came in and brought my dark squared bishop out to attack his knight and pin it. And therefore, kind of opens up possibilities of the queen to h5, depending on what the next moves are. He marched up the d5 pawn, which was a blunder, I think, because I just was able to capture my bishop. His knight's pinned. He can't recapture it because I would snag the queen. So then he tried kicking out my bishop. Instead of moving it back and playing the whole, lose my bishop thing, I decided to take the knight logically, and I figured he was going to take it with the queen. But he ended up taking it with the fucking pawn, which was a huge mistake because now I was able to bring in the queen on the h5 square with check. Now, he could have blocked with the queen, and then it would have been checkmate in 4. It would have been check, 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 checkmate. But he didn't. He wasn't that bad. So he moved his king to the only escape square, d8. Then that allowed me to come in and fork the king and rook with my knight. Now, he's got a couple options. He took the king to d7, but let's talk about his options. If he would have snuck it behind the knight, I would have had the discovered check scooping up the rook, and then he basically would have to run with the king or block and make the horrible move of blocking with the queen. If he blocked it with the queen, it's like checkmate in 6. Check, forced to go here, check, forced to go here, and then that's the best move, knight to g6, and depending on what he did from here, knowing his king is 100% froze, let's say he brought out the knight, which is his best move, I would have the move queen f7 check, and he's got 2 options. If he goes where is it? D8. I believe best move is, what is it? What's the best move from here? Yeah, taking the knight with the bishop, and more or less he's got to take, and then it's checkmate. If he ends up going forward, the best move is bringing the knight up. And depending on what he does, like if he brings the bishop up, that's checkmate. If he does something like march the pawn, then there's checkmate on b5. And there's checkmate on e4. But we know that that's not the best bet, blocking with the queen. So he ended up more or less bouncing with the king on d7. And I came in and checked on f5, and now he's got two options. Either block with the queen, or put his king on or block with the queen, I'm sorry, or put his king on e8. If he puts his king on e8, then it's check, block with the queen forced, checkmate. That's exactly what happened. His other option that he did technically have was block with the queen, and that would be checkmate right here, right now. So he stalled it out and ended up, tucking and hiding with his king on e8, and I had the beautiful finish, queen c8 check, forcing the queen to block on d8 because the king can't take because it's covered by the bishop. And that's a beautiful finish to a perfect game. I finally did it. Awesome. And thanks, I appreciate you guys. If you made it this far, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Catch you on the next.